Thank you for listening to this Forum podcast. Please check out our website for a rich archive of podcasts and writing from contemporary philosophers and other researchers on a wide variety of topics. The Forum is an educational charity dedicated to bringing academic philosophy to a broader audience. Please consider donating to us via our Just Giving page, which you can find on our website. Happy listening.
Good morning, welcome. I'm Danielle Sands. I'm a fellow at the Forum and I'm going to be chairing this morning's event. Today we are celebrating the launch of To Be Born, the new book by world-renowned philosopher and psychoanalyst Luce Irigaray. Luce is going to introduce the book to start off with, and then we'll have some brief responses by Tanya Staehler and Mahan O'Brien. And then I think Luce will respond to those, and then there'll be plenty of time at the end for your questions to Luce about the new book. And just to note that she will be available to sign copies after the event, so if you just follow the directions outside, you'll be able to buy a copy and get it signed. So without any further ado, I'd like to hand over to Luce Irigaray.
First, I would like to give thanks to the Forum of European Philosophy for inviting me. After that, to Tanya Ster, who has organized this meeting with them, and to Tanja and Mahon for being respondent today. And I thank you for being there today. I hope you will receive something from this meeting. Thank you for being there. Just I will present. They said to me in the first time that I have 20 minutes, just 20 minutes. After that, I will discuss with them and hopefully with you. Thus, To Be Born does not correspond to the usual way of approaching the event of birth, and that for various reasons. The one who gives birth is the little child, who gives birth to itself. Moreover, it appears as a hero and the guarantor for human transcendence, more than as a newborn begging and weeping for obtaining or care or help. There is no doubt that the newborn as human is unable to care for itself, and as such it is dependent on adults for its survival. Unfortunately, these adults are too inclined to reduce the little child to its needs without considering the message that it brings to us. Perhaps the amazing enthusiasm that the Christmas feast awakes in all the world revealed the part of the meaning of which the newborn is a messenger. In reality, each birth corresponds to the event of incarnation, and it ought to be celebrated as such, and not only on occasion of the Christmas day. Each birth is the advent of breath into the matter of a body, a breath which brings it forth as an autonomous life. If we wait for Christmas so much and often feel a little disappointed after its celebration, it is probably because we do not understand very well the meaning of the Christmas celebration. We mistake it for a merely religious event, or a mere opportunity to organize a family reunion with many gifts, so we are not thinking about the meaning of the day. We could leave the Christmas day as a celebration of the mystery of our own coming into the world as human, that is, of the advent of the birth of a new body, which as human is from the very beginning endowed with transcendence. Heidegger maintained that, I quote, "What could be our tendency to overrate humanity, we have not yet situated at a high level enough what means to be a human being." quote from Letter on Humanism. In To Be Born, I venture to take some steps forward towards a better assessment of what is or could be a human being. My way of thinking is always, in all my book, based on experience. As my time of speech is very short today, I will try to expound as briefly as I can what experience led me to write To Be Born. In really 5 experiences have been mainly determining. First, this of my relation with Nietzsche. Second, this of my cultural belonging to Christian tradition, which has something to do with my relation with Nietzsche. Third, my questioning about what culture, and in particular what language, are needed for the appearance of the new human being that both Nietzsche and Christian tradition require. 4, the experience of the danger and the distress in which we are today as humans. And 5, the problem we are faced with globalization, multiculturalism, and the necessity of elaborating a world culture. Thus, I return to the first point. As I am the guest of the European Society of Philosophy, I will begin with Nietzsche. As you probably know, Nietzsche is a philosopher really important in my work. But he is not for me only a theme of research, an opportunity to write text or to give talk. He is first and above all a companion of my life. And it is so much so that in my book, Marine Love, on Nietzsche, I address Nietzsche as a possible masculine companion. The dialogue that I hold with Nietzsche in this book does not amount to comment on the work of the dead, but to an attempt to enter into relation, even fleshly relation, with him as a living being. It is in this way that I experience and even endure the quest of Nietzsche for passing from the old man of the West to what he wrongly called the Superman. An undertaking that, according to me, means finally becoming a man. To hold a dialogue with Nietzsche involved for me a new way of becoming myself a woman, without contenting myself with criticizing our past tradition, as Nietzsche and many people after him unfortunately only do. Hence, the subtitle of To Be Born, that unfortunately the printer of the book can't shield, and which is determining for the book. The subtitle is Genesis of a New Human Being. That is the intention of the book. This book, To Be Born, is an attempt to conceive differently human being in order to overcome nihilism in a positive way. After the critical and deconstructive task carried out by Nietzsche, Heidegger, and their followers. To Be Born suggests a new development of human being from birth in order to cultivate life as human without resorting to suprasensitive ideals, but without giving us, for all that, to any transcendence as it is fashionable today. I consider the newborn as already endowed with transcendental aspiration, transcendental potential, that we fail to recognize by reducing it to its needs, because its physical immaturity. To be born continue the work of Nietzsche to overcome nihilism, proposing how to go beyond the old man of the West by becoming a new human being, or more exactly, by finally becoming human beings. Second point. The way that I suggest for becoming a new human being can also correspond to a non-nihilistic interpretation of the Christian message. In reality, Nietzsche does not criticize Christianity as such, but the fact that Christian tradition misunderstood the meaning of the advent of Jesus Christ. It is so much so that Nietzsche affirms that it has existed only one Christian, and he is dead on the cross. But Nietzsche did, as the Christian tradition, did not question enough what means becoming incarnate. And it is, according to me, the reason why he remained torn between Dionysus and the crucified. He did not take into consideration enough the importance of breath and of sexuation in order to become a new human being. Third point, to the fact that becoming incarnate results from the coming of an autonomous breath into the matter of a body, which in a way corresponds to the account of the Genesis, except that in the Genesis it is God himself who sent his breath in the matter. In my proposal, obviously it is the newborn who give birth to himself, to itself, by breathing by itself. Thus, to the fact that becoming incarnate results from the coming of an autonomous breath into the matter of a body, Christianity adds the importance of the word in the event of incarnation. But what does the word mean there? I wonder whether its first meaning could be sexuation, and more precisely refers to the chromosome I, as the first word necessary for a human conception, a thing that could explain the masculine identity of God, or whether its first meaning is the word as language. Perhaps the latter is mistaken for the former in our tradition, and the fact that we mistake word for a word in the masculine only. In To Be Born, I suggest that our sexual belonging as such, be it in the masculine or in the feminine, transcend our somatic belonging. That is, that our sexuation, be it in the masculine or in the feminine, allow us to transcend a mere physical existence. That our sexuation acts as a bridge between our body and our soul or spirit, but also as a bridge between us. A bridge that our tradition, and in particular Nietzsche, misses. Furthermore, our sexual belonging sends us back to our origin and calls us in mind that we are ecstatic, one could say transcendent, to this origin. Indeed, we are one, conceived by two different beings. I am a woman, conceived by a man and a woman, and I am forever in exile from the conjunction which gave birth to me. I am abandoned to a solitary destiny from birth, not to say from conception. And only my desire will give to this destiny a positive meaning. Through my desire, I long for uniting with the other being which participate in my origin. I long for deliberately assuming my origin not as a mere repetition. This would amount to falling back into a mere instinct or drive, or to falling into incest. Rather, I then assume my origin as ecstatic with respect to a mere existence. Uniting with the other different from myself by nature either happen as a mere instinctual repetition, at best subject to reproduction, or act as a transcendental assumption of the mystery of my origin. I could say the mystery of my being as human. These elements of transcendence exist from the very beginning in the newborn, but they are ignored by our cultural tradition and our education system. They do not consider that the cultivation of our breathing and of our sexual belonging ought to be a priority in the development of a human as a living being. Instead of respecting, educating, and even bringing out the original potential of the child for transcendence, this potential is underrated and even repressed by our cultural context and education. Even linguistics is used as a tool either to appropriate the world or to dominate it with signs parallel to the real and arbitrary with respect to the real. Instead, this sign being of use to express our own truth and serving our own development as human beings. Indeed, differently from a vegetal being, for example from a tree, a human being cannot grow only from its own roots. But the construct roots that our culture imposes on us as a substitution for natural roots too often cut us off from our living potential instead of cultivating it. Then human beings become a fabricated product which cannot develop according to its own energy, contrary to what characterizes a living being, as Aristotle already maintained. Aristotle distinguished the living of the fabricate, saying that living being is the one who is capable of moving, of growing by itself. It has energy for growing by itself. A fabricated product needs an external energy. And our education transforms a living energy in a fabricated product. We are no longer living energy for growing by itself. At best, we become hybrid beings, which wander in search of the way to inhabit and develop themselves, as, for example, in the case of Nietzsche himself. 4 points. For centuries, human being, especially the man, woman being allocated to nature, thus human being, especially the man and woman who act as man, is wandering outside of itself. It seems that we have reached a critical point today, and that such wandering must find an outcome. Either humanity is coming to an end, or we discover another way of conceiving what a human being is, and how it can develop towards its achievement, towards its blossoming. This corresponds to the main aim of To Be Born. This aim does not amount to the plan of an ambitious and arrogant demiurge, but to the search for a solution which could ensure a future for humanity. A future in which we do not content ourselves with a mere survival, but a future which entails positive human evolution. Instead of hoping to find it through an additional asset, To be born attempts to clear a path towards the recovery or the discovery of our being as human, not through blindly forging ahead, but through a return to our origin in order to think about it anew and about the manner of developing as humans, starting from our real origin. To be born question about what a human being is most originally and irreducibly, and how it is still possible to save it. That is, to preserve human being from fading, from being robotized, or from becoming whatever other being because of a loss of individuation due to a lack of living energy and its possible transformation into humanity. I think that apart from or beyond the change that we must introduce into education, the cultivation of the transcendental potential that desire represents and revive in us is what can rescue humanity today. Desire is what carries out the passage to a human belonging. According to me, desire characterizes humanity as such. At least it is so, on the condition that desire corresponds to an aspiration after sharing or longing for absolute with another living being different from us. Desire cannot really rescue us today if it amounts to reaching an absolute only for ourselves as individuals and as a sort of object or objectivity, an absolute which then must be held out of our reach through suprasensitive ideas in order to keep our longing for transcendence in abeyance. However, such alternative has become problematic after the criticism of nihilism by Nietzsche. Rather, we must endeavor to search for the absolute through a sharing desire with another different from us by nature. Last point, such a quest can happen only in an extreme destitution and poverty, and it is thus suitable for us today. Furthermore, it is accessible to everyone at a world scale. The problem is that we reduce everyone who depends on us, beginning with a child, to their needs, without understanding that their first need is to be recognized by us as human, that is at the level of desire, and what desire involves as aspiration for transcendence, aspiration after transcendence. Acting as we act generally, we let them, these others dependent on us, to a loss of humanity. And yet it is urgent to take human as such into our care, rather than regressing to the stage of needs, what is more of only material needs, as it is too often the case today. Then, instead of giving or giving again to the other their being, we reduce them to a sort of mechanism which is in need of us to begin or continue functioning as a fabricated product. In this way, we keep alive a global functioning of the world which subjects each of us, child or parents, poor or rich, to a wearing out of our living energy in order to remain in good working order. Under the guise of generosity and morality, we so let humanity to its extinction. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now have a short response from Dr. Tanya Staehler. Tanya is Reader in Philosophy at the University of Sussex.
Yes, thank you very much to all of you for coming and to the forum for hosting us. And my sincere apologies. It seems that I had originally given Luce the wrong time and had asked her to speak for 20 minutes when it should have been 30 minutes, but she would like to respond to our responses. So the way we are going to give her back some of the time that I apologize for taking, we are going to try and do it in this way. To Be Born is a beautiful book and full of beautiful concepts and formulations. I will give you just an example of one of my favorite bits, of which there are many. In a second step, I will disagree with Luce on a particular point, the idea of the family. Thirdly, I will turn to my favorite topic in the book, language, speech, words. Let me begin by reading some sentences from the beginning of the book, which I like a lot. For me, they offer a wonderful possibility of thinking existentialism, or the philosophy of existence, anew, but from our being born, not from our having to die. The old existentialist dictum that existence comes before essence has always been difficult to grasp. When Sartre explains it, he incorporates atheism into his explanation, but not all existentialism is atheist. Plus, as Luce Irigaray shows, there is simply no need to refer to God or the absence thereof in order for us to understand. And now there's going to be a long quote. There will be several sort of long passages from the book since you don't know the book yet. Quote, "We imagine our lot in comparison with animality or divinity, but not as humans, the ones whose destiny is to take charge of their existence from a not appropriable essence. Human being cannot develop from roots as a tree or from an environment as an animal. Human being must take responsibility for existence beyond any continuity with regard to roots and background. Human being exists only by taking on the not being of a continuum, a break, a void, a nothing. Human must give itself a being with faithfulness to the living being that it is. In a way, it must create its human being through relating to the world and the others, be they plants, animals, or humans, a being in relation, which requires us not to be what they are, while being able to be in relation to and with what they are, that is, capable of taking on the negative that the difference represents." End of quote. Living with difference, negotiating difference, is who we are as humans. Where we first grow up in the family, our possibilities to become ourselves are limited, according to Luce Irigaray. She writes, "The family is determined by concern about satisfying natural needs. Family community is first based on survival and its material requirements. And the other as other does not really exist in the family community. If the being with that procures family can satisfy needs, it does not offer either hospitality or conditions for a culture of our being with as humans. No doubt a culture of relationships exists within the family itself, but it less aims to make blossom the potential of each of its members than supporting the unity that they compose. These behaviors maintain functioning of the family unit, the role of which is not to promote heroism and transcendental aspirations of one or the other, but to keep the coherence of the whole. The family enclosure does not permit the child to totally appear as it is. It cannot find there both recognition and cultivation suitable for its bodily maturity, especially at a sexual, but even at a sexual level. The safety at the level of needs that the family institution provides is offset by a lack of power to be for each member, as well as by the reduction of communication and communion between all the members in a unit which implements rules over the relationships, especially the sensitive and affectionate ones. End of quote. That is where I need to disagree. I don't want to give up on the family, although I admit it can often go wrong. Admittedly, lots of the things that happen in families can actually indeed be suffocating. All of Luce's images of breathing, growing, and blossoming work very well here. Family is extremely difficult. But I do not think that family is intrinsically flawed or that it cannot also go well. I do not think the essence of family is problematic. I do not want us to give up on the family, but think about how we can be together better, because the potential is enormous. Not only do we know each other better than anybody else, from the first breath, the first step, the first word, the first kiss, and the first loving announcements, potentially, usually perhaps to mommy, because those are at the same time what makes it worth it, this extremely unsettling and strange experience of becoming mothers, which turns our body inside out and our world upside down, or so it feels. After 9 years of sleep deprivation, I often feel I will literally start seeing the world upside down at any moment now. I am convinced that we have otherness already in the family, and I think Levinas would agree with me, and I see his echoes in Luce's book. We practice, play, do everything that helps us later negotiate our moods with one another and conceptualize feelings better. What makes it possible, to my mind, to further the aspirations of the other in the family is love, about which we can learn a lot from Luce in this book. Which leads me to the core, to the most important part of the book for me, at its center, language. We are the creatures who have logos, as the ancient philosopher said, for which Luce gives us a beautiful argument. We have logos because we need it. Long quote. Language ought to help us compensating for our lack of continuously taking root in a ground and an atmosphere which are appropriate to us. If we cannot flower as a vegetal being does, has not the word to contribute to the possibility of our becoming present in the present? Must it not grant us a presence here and now, whatever our lack of roots? Is it not the word which ought, at least in part, to compensate for this lack instead of increasing our being exiled from our origin? Indeed, the word is not merely spoken by humans, it is also speaking by itself, and as such, it generates itself and ends in creating a world of its own which does not correspond to that of our natural development. The word which could accompany and favor the latter is still lacking. For example, we have not yet thought about the properties of our speaking which would make it capable of acting as the elements necessary for our physical growth: air, sun, water, earth. We have both overestimated and underestimated the potential of the word. End of quote. That is fascinating. The project of thinking words by way of elements and vice versa is extremely interesting. Luce Irigaray undertakes it in Through Vegetal Being in the chapter Could Words Substitute for the Elements? And I believe you will be able to buy that book here today as well. Language is not just words, but as Luce's book reminds us, also laughter, crying, moaning, gesturing, mimicking, and silence. Silence is a very interesting concept for me because of also some online teaching that I did for the Royal College of Midwives. One of the mini lectures is entitled Silence Please, and it explains how being with a woman in labor can often benefit from silence or communication without words, where possibilities like breathing together as well as massage immediately come to mind. The lecture was inspired by an experience I had during my third birth, a home birth, during which one of the midwives asked me every few minutes, "How are you doing?" A perfectly benign question, but as I only understood later, I was just not in a good position to re-emerge into the realm of words. Plus, it is not easy to come up with a satisfying response in that situation. Silence matters. Breathing together matters. Being with one another matters. And perhaps, just only perhaps, family can eventually still be the place to learn all that. Apologies for the abrupt ending. I could certainly continue reading out my favorite passages, but it is time to enter into the discussion, for which Luce has given us manifold new concepts and ideas.
Thank you.
Thus, I must react to the work of Tanya. Firstly, I will react to his discourse on please be indulgent for my English. I am French. First point, she received my book, if I understood well, as taking place inside existentialism. I think it is not absolutely the case, because I am in search for a new ontology. And I am not sure that it was objective, it was a concern for existentialism. I am in search for a new ontology. And this is said in all the book and also on the cover of the book. First point. I think on this point I also will dialogue probably with Mahon. That is the point. It is, I am surprised, I will return on that, how it is difficult to make Earth a new word, a new discourse. All the time we are reduced, we are ramené, je ne sais pas comment on dit, to what happened in the past. And according to me, if humanity is dying today, it is because we are unable to open to novelty. Thank you. I will say a few words. Perhaps I will say in this moment. Tanya said that when she was giving birth, she asked for silence. As I tried to give birth to a new human being at the ontologic level, I ask you for being sometimes silent with the past tradition and to be capable of receiving new words with silence. So they can grow in yourself. If not, they are buried, immediately buried. And sometimes but I have no much time. I feel me a little as Antigone, as you know, it is a character very important in my work. Just already after Speculum, I said to an old friend, I am not buried in a cave as Antigone. I am buried under earth by my tradition. I said to my old friend, just I emerged, they buried me anew. Let me breathe. Please let me breathe. And let my word breathe. That second thing about the family, I am not happy to say that to you, but you have been a little dishonest, because first you cut and you have not indicated the cut when you cut. You have in your quotation, you have cut, many cut, and you have not indicated the cut. That, for me, is not absolutely honest. Second point, this discourse on family happened in the chapter on being quiz. In fact, in the book, I follow the little child all the stage of its becoming. And the discourse on family happened in being quiz with a theme for it is a theme of existence, but also a theme important in Heideggerian philosophy, for example. And I said, commenting on being quiz, I stressed on many points, but above all on 2 points. The first, that for a little child, grow in a world formed by living beings, or grow in a world made up by fabricated product, is absolutely not the same, obviously. And I develop that. As a second point, I said that the first being quiz happened in the family, and the family is not the best place for developing the transcendental potential of each child, because in the family we must form a family unite, and not and on this subject, I among others said that the sexual potential of the child, that is, its desire, cannot absolutely develop inside the family. But I stress the fact that a little dishonest from the part of Tanya, I talk of the patriarchal family, and I contrast with the family in the matrilinear tradition. Thus, the discourse that Tanya quote is my criticism at the patriarchal family. I said it was not the same in the time of matrilinear tradition, because in patriarchal family, nature is cut from culture. Thus, the family is not the place of a culture. In the matrilinear tradition, for example, in the character of Antigone, we are in an epoch in which nature and culture are not separate from one another. Thus, it is absolutely different. If you, in the time of the matrilinear tradition, cosmos and logos are the same. Logos are not separate from cosmos. Thus, my criticism is on patriarchal family. I think it is important to say that. Thus, also, I would like to say some word about Levinas, because it is, for finishing on the family, I also call in mind in this chapter of being in with the tragedy of Antigone. The tragedy of Antigone is a passage from matrilinear tradition to patriarchal tradition. Thus, it was honest, Tanya, to say that I might criticize a family in the patriarchal tradition, and that I call in mind another sort of family in which culture and nature are together. Because I criticize the fact that, for example, in the patriarchal family, inside the family, we have only nature, and she called that. And on this culture of nature, we will impose on the child a culture which is not a culture of nature. And the poor child will be schizophrenic because he has the culture inside the family and the culture at school. It is my discourse in this chapter. Thus, I would a few words on allusion to Levinas. Many times my work is confused with the work of Levinas, or they are absolutely different. And I have a letter from Levinas himself that I would like to quote or to publish. I will ask the permission for that. When I wrote Ethic of Sexual Difference, I sent a copy to Levinas because it was the first time I wrote a text on Levinas. I myself aspire, after a discussion with Levinas, a discussion between a man and a woman. I want that. I asked that from Levinas. And I received a letter saying that I must understand that he cannot agree with my position, that it is absolutely not his position. Alors, I would like, thus he refused the dialogue with me, and I would like to ask Levinas, what is for you the other, if you cannot agree with the person who do not share your own position? Thank you. I suffer for so much time from all the misunderstandings that sometimes, and I must leave the word probably to Mahon, but I would like to say that obviously the women's lead can end in the permission for women for expressing their empirical condition in public, that is, to speak about their own giving birth. I agree with that. I also would like to say two things. That I am afraid that us women need another culture than this culture. For it is one of my aim in To Be Born. As women, we fall back into the past, and we remain only at an empirical level that patriarchy allowed to us. You can't remain empirical. Please remain empirical so I can govern the world. It is so. So we have, and it is my responsibility to define another culture at the transcendental level. And after that, we can discuss together. Before we have not transcendent, we are not capable as women to reach a transcendental discourse. We are not partner for men. And for finishing to the giving birth to which Tanya alluded, I would say that giving birth to an ontological new being is very difficult. Thank you.
And our final speaker is Mahan O'Brien, who is lecturer in philosophy at the University of Sussex.
Thanks, Danielle. I just realised I think you actually answered one of the questions I had at the end. But anyways. So I won't keep you very long, but just some general remarks about the book. And I think To Be Born epitomises, for me at least anyway, the many and unique qualities of Luce Irigaray's work. You do recognise implicit, sometimes explicit references to the texts and the thinkers that she draws from and engages, but I think she's dragged, if you like, what we sometimes call these dead white males, into a living and very vibrant conversation. So we are in the presence of someone who can just see things in a different way, and for me, I'm sure for countless people everywhere, awakens a genuine intellectual excitement and pushes us to think in new and unique ways. often forcing us to challenge, in my case, what were probably dogmatically held beliefs, and exposing presuppositions for what they were, namely presuppositions, and often held without warrant. So it's also a nuanced and carefully developed book, and in it, should I call you Luce or Irigaray? What do you think? Should I call you Luce or Irigaray? You're sitting right here, so I'm looking at Irigaray. I said, well, that seems very informal. What do you think?
He was not understood.
Should I say Luce or should I say Irigaray?
Please choose. It is incredible.
Yeah, well,
If you are not choosing your position, you cannot hold the dialogue. You make me reminding Mahon in 68.
I wasn't here.
No, but let me remind, because you are doing a little the same. In 68, the woman's life was powerful in France. And really, we are there, we are firm, we are together, we are joyful, And what happened? Finally, I become a woman, I wait for a man. And at this moment, Derrida, Deleuze, they are all becoming women. Be a man.
If I can be compared to Derrida, I'll be all right. So then, Luce explores a series of interlinking notions revolving around the event of a child's birth and weaves a really intricate tapestry, looks to combine new conceptions of genealogy, origins, carnality, sexuality, desire, love, difference, wonder. And is really calling for nothing less than a radical overhaul of our understanding of what it means for human beings to be, what it means to be a human being. And apart from the philosophical and intellectual dexterity of the book, something that, well, it was my impression, it jumped off the page, was you could really feel and hear the passion and profound concern for humanity reverberating almost in every other line. So there's a plaintive quality to the text and a really sort of profoundly felt wish to alleviate suffering, I felt, along with an exhortation to celebrate life, to a call to affirm life that takes its bearings from a kind of a new carnal cartography. So again, it's probably fair to say, and it's not any news to anyone, that Luce has long been a gadfly in the grey hide of the patriarchal Western tradition, and across a substantial body of work has successfully identified the myopic nature of Western philosophy in particular, and the manner in which it has consistently neutralized and or masculinized many aspects of our thinking and understanding. And in this latest book, I think Luce draws and develops on some of those findings and looks to put them in the service of a new vision for humanity, which opens up new horizons for existence and encourages us to infuse our conception of human existence with an appreciation of carnality, the flesh, desire, sensuality, childlike curiosity, and importantly, a willingness to allow and to let, so to invite and accommodate, rather than the predominantly assimilative, totalizing tendencies of previous philosophical discourse, which sort of look to make existence homogeneous or uniform and don't really allow or permit difference. So again, one could imagine other people reading the book and say, well, look, it's been a long-standing trope in feminist discourse, for example, a discourse which Lucy did an awful lot to shape, that various aspects of the female or feminine have been suppressed or diminished, including notions of maternal natality, birth, while other notions pertaining to the corporeal and nature are conflated with the feminine and rejected in favour of a rather cold, austere, dispassionate conception of rationality. And one of the first and most famous characterizations of the philosophical impulse in the Western tradition is articulated by Socrates in one of Plato's dialogues, and he describes philosophy as a practicing and preparation for death, and thereby this aspiration for the constantly glorified dualistic fantasy of the separation from the weak flesh from the rational mind. So one thought or one kind of cheap shot type objection might be, well, is this, are these old ideas just wearing new clothes? And I think it would be really unfair to characterize the book in that way and would do a great disservice to the sort of the novelty of this project. So in re-examining notions of birth, corporality, desire, and difference. I think Luce is trying to engage with thinkers such as Heidegger and Nietzsche, but to see how their vision might be enhanced and developed as a result of that engagement. And the figure of Heidegger in particular, for me at least, was a very interesting one here, in that perhaps more than any other thinker he's usually credited with prioritizing the role of death. I don't know why I have that in bold. Anyway, I don't know why I made it like this, but anyways, I have it in big bold print, death. And in what is widely considered one of the most important philosophical texts of the 20th century, which is Being and Time. Now, criticisms of Heidegger's seminal discussion, I think, are more or less inevitable then. But I thought it was important to note that Heidegger's not really interested in the actuality of death at all, but wants to destabilize instead the influence of the metaphysics of presence, and to underline the importance of our temporal limits to any sense of what it means for us to be. So in a way, I thought as I was reading the book that, well, maybe Heidegger's eminently amenable to an appropriation, but which focuses more on our beginning than our end, since it is, again, an attempt to look at the extraordinary fact of our coming into being from a state of not having being. What Heidegger, of course, may not have acknowledged is the key role that the carnal union of two loving yet different beings plays in this event of giving life. Okay, I'm going to skip that. So, I'm going to move to here. So, Luce positively invokes a number of other ideas and discussions in To Be Born. One of the things that Heidegger demonstrates a growing concern with is the role that technology is playing in our lives, and he's eventually going to dub this the technological age. So don't worry or panic, I'm not going to delve into the intricacies of Heidegger's philosophy of technology, but it is an account that I think Luce draws on. In particular, one of the key notions that she appropriates from the work is this notion of Gestell. It's a very famous concept in Heidegger's work in technology. It's often translated as in framing or positionality. So the essence of our modern technology, according to Heidegger, is in framing, this positionality or Gestell. Now, what he means by that, again, is a rather complex overview of the unfolding of Western metaphysics as a metaphysics of presence, and it culminates in this age of Gestell, so that in the current epoch everything is revealed to us, everything is rendered meaningful for us to say, that is to say, everything is for us sort of under the auspices of Gestell or in framing. So it's a metaphysical lens through which we see everything. And he began to see this, I think, very early in his work, and he's even willing to say as early as 27, when you look around you, the wood is a forest of timber, the mountain is a quarry of rock. And his abiding hope is, in his work, that, and it's the only possibility of salvation from the planetary crisis of technology, is that we somehow manage to escape from this metaphysical age of enframing, and that we develop a new sort of metaphysical filtration system that would allow us to see things anew rather than in the increasingly reductive fashion of the technological age. Again, he's a fairly complex and difficult story as to how that might be a possibility. And I think in a way for Heidegger, he stops short. The way is never clear, and in some respects maybe Luce is going further than him here, I think. And takes up this Heideggerian challenge and envisages its possibility through the advent of a new way of being, which she thinks could emerge from thinking about the exemplary erotic union of two loving human beings and the act of love which in turn allows for the birth of another. And it really is a very novel and intriguing suggestion. And for my own part, as I was looking through the book and reading it, that was what I wanted to hear more about. How could we usher in or look forward to such a new metaphysical sort of gestalt in the 21st century? Luce alludes to it frequently, but for me it wasn't always clear how would this come about. And Luce further notes in the epilogue to her book that her proposal, that is the possibility of rebuilding the world from a relationship of desire and love between a man and a woman, will probably be met with skepticism, and I certainly wouldn't want to appear skeptical about this at all. I'm a fan, but I am curious. I'm curious to know whether, or if, and this is the question I think you've already answered, whether it's a change that she sees happening at the level of metaphysics, And if so, will this metaphysics arrive on the feet of this book? I mean, I'm using the feet of the dove image from the conclusion of your book. Or how far are we away from that kind of change? Will the language needed be the language we already have, but negotiated by different kinds of human beings? Or do we need something even more than the, for example, torturous linguistic acrobatics and neologisms of Heidegger? So I'll leave you with those final questions. Thank you.
I reflect on the main point on which I can answer. Perhaps you would like to make clear, it is a way to answer both Tanya and Mahon, that when I use love, it is love not agape only, it is love as eros. It is also the reason for which the family cannot be the place in which love can develop for the child. Do you understand? Erotism cannot develop, or you are doing the apology of incest, or you can understand that it is not inside the family that eros can be developed. Thus that as for me, I answer also to Mahon. As for me, desire is the place in which we reach desire for the other as different, naturally different, is the place in which we reach transcendence, but transcendence which is absolutely different from the past relation to transcendence. We can reach a transcendence without suprasensitive ideal. We are. It is the point, perhaps the most important in the book. It is the proposal of a new ontology, which does not restore to suprasensitive ideal, but is based on a sensible transcendental. That is the main, perhaps one of the most important points of the book. Thus, when I am talking about erotism, for example, I am talking about eros in absolutely new way. Also a new way with respect to Plato, even if I quote Plato. Because in Plato you have not the horizon of a transcendental relation between the lover and the beloved. For this transcendental dimension appearing, we need to have a relation between two differently sexual natural beings. That is, perhaps it is difficult to understand. It is as I think that as the really important idea of an epoch, they are the more simple, which are the more difficult to understand, because they change the way of thinking. Taking difference into account in a really serious manner, way, change the foundation of our cultural culture. And then we do not need suprasensitive ideal. No, the other, as incarnate, is for me a transcendental sensible. Thus, that is, if you ask me if I am only staying at the empirical level,
No, more
negotiate with different kings. You change your text?
So, yeah, because I knew I was wrong. So, yeah, I took that out.
It seemed to me that you asked me if I am only developing the possibility of a concrete existence,
I took that out.
or if I am proposing a new, you say metaphysical, I would say a new philosophical foundation.
Yeah.
I am obviously proposing a new philosophical foundation.
Yeah. So
A foundation that Nietzsche, Heidegger, and all these consistent thinkers ask for.
Yes. Yeah. Good.
That is one of my answer.
Yeah.
Obviously, as I am a woman, I run the risk that they will reduce me to empirical and to patience. And another, about the Gestalt, it is really important. I think to me that, as I said in my little talk, from the beginning of the Logos, it is also the reason for which we cannot stay in Logos, because Logos is parallel to our living existence. We need to invent another way of speaking. But I want to say that from the beginning, and because of Logos, humanity is wandering outside of itself. And the Gestalt, in English, the device,
Framing,
or
personality.
device. I use also device because I will allude to Michel Foucault with device. Thus, when, according to me, Logos is already techne, you will agree probably with me. Thus, the Greek Logos is normal. It is that the Greek Logos and in technology, in our technical year, because the Logos as it was is already techne. And that is a point. Thus, my concern when writing to be two, already before, is instead of being dependent on a Gestalt, on a frame, which is external to ourselves, how can we place the Gestalt within ourselves? Do you understand?
Yep.
And I think that it is the reason for which I consider our sexuation as a Gestalt which in ourselves and can secure a bridge between ourselves and the world. It is already so, because we look at the world. I work a lot on sexuation of language, and it is obvious that girl and boy do not, man and woman do not speak in the same way. We have no time enough for developing, but you can have a look to my text on that. That is already our sexual body act as a frame between the world and ourselves, between the other and myself. I try to make this clear and invite us to take charge of that. Why sexuation? Because sexuation is our body is not only a matter. Thanks to our sexuation, the sexuation act as a morphology. We allow us to unify and take charge of our own body. It acts between body and spirit. And thus I place the Gestalt inside ourselves as a morphology that allow us to assume our existence. If we are only a mere body, we cannot assume our existence. Then we resort to parents or to transcendent outside or rich, assuming our sexuation as a frame, an internal frame, a frame that acts before internal and external, allow us to become another human being. Could you understand and agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes,
we've only got about 15 minutes left, so now might be a good time to take some questions from the audience.
If you want. I imagine that you have many questions. I am here only for a few minutes. After that, I will sign your book if you want. Yes.
So this question and then that one. Yes, this one first.
Please, as I am French, may try to make short questions.
Okay.
I speak very...
Can you hear me?
Hein?
Can you hear me?
What?
Just a test.
We're in
Can you
trouble.
hear her? Yeah.
Yes, it was just, I wanted you to elaborate on something you said, actually, Mahon, just to explain a bit more what you meant about this new world order, new ontology, being a connection between two natural beings.
Let me... Maria, could you translate, please? Are you able to translate? Thank
Well, I
you.
had an easy, I had a more simple question.
Being sure that I understand.
You seemed to impress heavily during this talk, which I thought was brilliant, and so much to chew over, your womanhood. You know, I am a woman, you said to Mahon. You know, I am different, we speak differently. And I guess I'm asking, what is important for you? What makes you a woman? What qualities?
The framework of my body, the morphology of my body,
Okay.
my situation with respect to my origin. It is not the same to be born as the same as myself, or to be born different from myself. Do you understand?
Okay. I'm trying.
If I am a girl of which a woman give birth, I have not the same relation from the beginning. I am the same as the person who, at a certain level, gave birth to me, because what gave birth to me is the union between the two. It is not only my mother. Thus, two important things: the morphology of my body. Okay, I have not the same body as a man, and if we take this point into consideration enough, I cannot, it is also one of my differences with Levinas. Levinas affirms that I can substitute for the other. I say no, I cannot substitute for the other. Thus, the framework, the morphology of my body, which constitute a framework that I cannot leap over. It is my framework.
I see, I understand
And
that.
the second thing, very important, is the relation with my origin. It is not the same being born apparently by a woman, or by the same or a different. And if you are a woman, we have not the same relation to origin than a man. You have the origin apparently at a certain level. You have the origin in yourself. Do you understand?
I do, yes. I
At
guess
a
I'm
certain level.
I'm thinking more of perhaps individuals who who were always women but were not born with the biological framework, the morphologies of what we perceive as a woman.
Could you translate, Maria?
C'est une question si on sentit qu'on est une femme, mais le corps ne correspond pas à ce sentiment. Donc c'est une question des personnes qui...
Si vous, alors, you have, because there are some exceptions, you have a body of a woman, but you do not feel to be a human. That is your question?
Not really.
Alors,
No,
what
it's
is really
women,
your question?
women who don't have the biological framework as women, so transgender women, for instance.
Je ne connais pas le mot en français, mais c'est...
Alors, utilisez une périphrase, moi je vais comprendre, j'espère.
La question c'est comment on peut penser, qu'est-ce que vous pensez de cette question d'une personne qui est femme, mais qui n'a pas le corps d'une femme, you
are asking to me the problem of transgender.
Well, I wouldn't call it a problem, but yeah.
This problem, I think that whatever the case, obviously I cannot construct a new culture only with exception. But I will answer your question. What could be your body until now? And you are conceived by a man and a woman. The problem of your origin remains the same. And I would like to add another point important. I have some friends who are transgender, and they thank me for proposing a way of choosing their identity and not being only in the hands of scientists and doctors. It is my answer.
Thank you.
Okay, should we take the question up there?
Thank you very much for your talk and also for your work and for being a feminist for such a long time, which is very important.
Cannot come here.
What was that?
Perhaps if you come here, you have a chance to understand.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I wanted to thank you for your talk and also for your work and for being a feminist for such a long time, which is very important and also for me. My question on your talk and on your idea of the transcendental coming out of and maybe my question goes in the direction we already talked about now. So the idea that your new ontology of being human raises from this radical differences of a man and a woman, which is not my question. You don't have to legitimize why you prefer to stick on the binary of gender, but my question is rather, how do you deal with the responsibility that your argument could be used from a right populist wing political nowadays when we have queer families, for example, and that the critique that the ontology of human being is in this constellation of women and men having kids. How do you deal with this responsibility? Not your concept. That's not my question. That's another question. But the political responsibility of that.
Please, Maria, help.
Peut-être je peux aussi faire en français.
Alors faites-le en français, vous. Merci.
Alors j'essaie. La responsabilité de votre conseil de l'ontologie d'être humain.
Oui.
si c'est la base d'être né par un homme et une femme. C'est ça la transcendance, le nouveau être humain. Et comment vous confrontez des arguments des populistes des populistes de la droite? Comment vous confrontez, quels sont vos arguments de leur dire c'est pas ça que je pense, c'est pas ça que je propose de penser à une famille qui est hétérosexuelle, etc., traditionnelle. C'est vraiment... moi, j'ai l'impression que c'est possible pour la droite populiste de prendre votre conseil, votre argument et argumenter dans une perspective politique qui est très difficile pour des queer families.
Thank you. Must I understand in your question that henceforth the right is more clever than la droite, c'est the right?
Yeah.
Is more clever than the left?
Well, at the moment.
It is my question. If they are, if they are, alors, firstly, I would make clear that I am not talking about sexuality until now. I am entrusting to people their identity with a responsibility. I talk about a sexual identity. With our sexual identity, we can make the choice, make the choice that you want. I have not a discourse, a normative discourse on sexuality until now, except that the fact that to remain in sameness is not the same as to to have access to difference, because it is, for example, if you are a philosopher, with respect to Hegel, to have access in difference is the possibility of taking on the negative in another manner than Hegel. The subtitle Genesis of a New Human Being is a way of it is post-Nietzschean, a post-Christian undertaking. That is to say that transcendence exists from the beginning. We have not to search transcendence. We must respect the transcendence that is in your care from the beginning as human. That is the point. It is a manner of growing without resorting to suprasensitive ideas. Alors, if the right is really more capable on understanding that and promoting that, it will become another right. My discourse is not. I know already they improved me. To have a discourse that the right could appropriate. But please, appropriate this discourse as left. The main problem of the left today, I work a lot with Italian Communist Party. The great problem of the left today, also in France, that we have no discourse, we have no program, and you struggle with the other. We destroyed the desire between people. The left in this moment is in large part scandalous. I am shameful for the left. Alors you pave the way for the left do that. Try to have in a good program, a best program, not only to criticize, not only to destroy the adversary. Comment on dit l'adversary? Adversary. It is shameful. Where are the good program of the left today?
Unfortunately, we have run out of time. I'm sorry if you've still got questions for Luce. I'm sure she'll be happy to answer them when she is signing books outside. I'd like to thank you all for coming and ask you to join me once more in thanking us.